Two stories, one for parents, one for teens. The first one for the parents is about the late Stephen R. Covey as told by his daughter Cynthia. And the second story for the teens is about Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev as told by Tony Robbins and how the Cold War ended. So, the first bit about Stephen R. Covey. Now, he's written so many management books and a fantastic teacher and a mentor. Seven Habits of Effective People, Highly Effective People. So, Cynthia, after Stephen R. Covey passed away, was interviewed. Cynthia, Stephen R. Covey's daughter, and she talked about one of her fond memories with her father. And she says there was one particular day when uh, they had planned they had planned for weeks and months about going to, I can't remember if it was San Francisco or LA, one of the two, and it was probably San Francisco. But she said that they planned roller coaster rides, going to Chinatown and having Chinese food, then coming back into the hotel, and when it was late, sneaking into the pool like her father was famous for after it was closed in the night, and then coming back to the hotel room and watching the late show and eating hot chocolate fudge or something like that. So they had planned this to the dot, the father and daughter, and the anticipation was part of the excitement and the fun. So the big day came, and her father was giving a seminar in either San Francisco or LA, probably San Francisco. Anyways, the point is the father was giving the seminar and the daughter was waiting, and the seminar gets done. And just when they are about to leave, one of Stephen R. Covey's friends catches him. And he says, "Wow, it's so great to see you. I haven't seen you for so long. There's a great place for dinner down the road. My wife and me are going. Why don't you join? Your daughter can join us too." And Stephen R. Covey says, "That sounds great." And Cynthia, his daughter, feels, "Oh no, what about a planned day?" And then after that, just when he said that's sort of a great idea, he said, "But not today, because I've planned an evening with my daughter." And so Stephen R. Covey and Cynthia, his daughter, have this wonderful evening day together. And Cynthia talks about it after her father passes away and talks about how she cherishes the time she spent with him, and especially that particular evening or day. So my point is attention. I think that's the most important gift we can give our children, and plus focus and attention has so many other cascading effects. But the second story about how the Cold War ended. Now, Tony Robbins is a great, amazing, and he has interviewed both Ronald Reagan, the ex-president of America, and Mikhail Gorbachev, the leader of USSR when it split and communism sort of disintegrated in 89-90. And there were real dangers of nuclear war during the Cold War time. Yeah. So attended a seminar earlier today about Tony Robbins from the Inner Circle, where he talked about how in the 89-90 time there were school drills to show that if there was a nuclear attack or a mushroom cloud coming up, what to do. And I thought I can actually relate to this, because when I was in near Los Angeles, Loma Linda in 89-90, I was in second grade, and we used to actually have these drills where we suddenly there's some alarm or something would ring, and I remember going under the table first and then going out into the open. We were told it was earthquake drills. I thought, yeah, that makes sense because California has a lot of earthquakes. But today, when Tony Robbins talked about that, I realized that was sort of a nuclear war drill as well. And there was real danger of nuclear war during the Cold War, which seems like so long ago, but it happened. And after it ended, Tony Robbins talks about a time when he was invited. Tony Robbins was 31, and he was invited for sort of a ceremony, and all significant people from all over the world were invited about the Cold War ending, because the wall between the two Germanys, East and West Germany, had fallen, and they were going to sort of decide how to do something good because communism has ended, something like that, some important event. So Mikhail Gorbachev was coming, and apparently Tony Robbins had the privilege of flying Mikhail Gorbachev and his team from Colorado to New York, I think, because he was already flying in his private jet. And in that time he was so excited because he could spend some time with Mikhail Gorbachev and ask him like some important questions, like how the Cold War ended. So they were sitting together, and apparently Mikhail Gorbachev was sleeping most of the time. But when he got his little few moments to ask him, he asked him how did the Cold War end? So Mikhail Gorbachev apparently had a translator, but he knew little English apparently. But what he says is that to end demonization, things like that. But then Tony Robbins probes him more and asks him, what was the exact moment when the Cold War ended? So it seems that Mikhail Gorbachev at that time, from the words of Tony Robbins, apparently beats his leg and gets so excited and says, nobody's ever asked me that question before that way. And so now Mikhail Gorbachev is describing what happens with him and Ronald Reagan. And he says that they were arguing about, nuclear war, nuclear disarmament, no, and communism, capitalism. And there it ends like this. And suddenly, Ronald Reagan goes back, looks away, walks up for a few seconds, and comes back and says, let's start over. I'm Ron. And the way he reframed that by changing the state, Mikhail Gorbachev was so impressed by Ronald Reagan that he said, you had to love the guy, So what got to me was that such a big thing that like the Cold War ended by two people getting along, and that's so fantastic. And details of how states can change through physiology, focus, and language are other things that Tony Robbins the Great talks about, and I've learned a little bit from him about. But Tony Robbins also had interviewed Ronald Reagan, and he asked Ronald Reagan the same question, the President of America during the Cold War time. Ronald Reagan, how did the Cold War end? Yeah, so Ronald Reagan has a different story, but similar to changing state and people getting along. So Ronald Reagan talks about another time somewhere else where, again, they were arguing about nuclear disarmament and how to sort of de-escalate the arms race. So it wasn't going anywhere. So suddenly, Ronald Reagan says, let's go for a walk. And Michael Gorbachev says, what? It's cold outside. So just the act, but they agree to go. So just the act of getting up, wearing a coat, going out together, walking for some time, and it seems they came to an agreement to actually de-escalate by, I think it was something about long-range nuclear weapons being disarmed, something specific like that. But that was a big step towards ending the Cold War, and things like changing state can get us to get along and make big things happen like ending the Cold War. Yeah. Stay happy.